help us prevent sin in our lives. Anything we put in place to help us prevent sin in our lives. Okay? If you were there 2 weeks ago, you would have heard Lara's talk on sin, right? Just a little bit of a recap. Sin is anything that goes against God's word. Okay? Sin hurts us, it hurts those around us, and it puts a gap between us and God. Okay? All of us have felt the effect that sin has, whether it's our own sin or the sin of those around us. You guys all good? You can still hear me?
Yeah.
Loud and clear. Okay, fantastic. So, yeah, sin is something that's very serious, right? And boundaries is something that we put in place to help us prevent sin. So I'm going to read a passage from Matthew chapter 5 where Jesus actually talks about this. So in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus is teaching his disciples, and he says, "If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell." Jesus is clearly commanding us to take measures to stop sin in our lives. What Jesus is not saying is that you should cut off your body parts and throw them into the fire. There's no example in the Bible of disciples actually doing that. It's hyperbole. But what he is saying is if there's something that causes you to sin, get rid of it. Okay? So there's two types of boundaries that I want to talk about. And the way that I came up with this sorting system is I call them physical boundaries and non-physical boundaries. So non-physical boundaries is more of a commitment. It's a value that you have, it's a rule that you have in your life. For instance, I'm not going to drink alcohol. Drinking alcohol is not a sin. It's not a boundary if you say I'm not going to sin. Okay, that's not a boundary. A boundary needs to be before you even sin. Like saying I'm not going to drink alcohol. Well, that's maybe a bad example because most of you guys are underage, and if you drink it would be a sin. But maybe it's something like saying I'm not going to watch TV or be on a phone or any screen time after 9 o'clock in the evening. That's a boundary, right? You're putting that in place. You're saying I'm not going to do that. Maybe if you're in a relationship, it's saying I'm not going to do anything further than holding hands with the person that I'm dating, right? These are non-physical boundaries. It's a commitment, it's a rule that you make, and they are really, really useful if you're able to live by these rules. Now, non-physical boundaries are sometimes not enough. It's not enough to just say, yeah, I'm not gonna be on a screen after 9 o'clock, and then you do it anyway. That's not helpful. So, physical boundaries is something that physically prevents you from sinning at the moment of your thought. For instance, the guy that cut out his eyes in Jesus' example, if they wanted to look at someone with lust, they physically can't do it because they don't have eyes. When you have that thought, it stops you from committing that sin. So an example of that might be uninstalling an app from your phone or your computer. Maybe you realize it's an idol in your life. Maybe you realize it leads you to committing some other sin. Maybe it's just something that you shouldn't have in the first place, right? This is a physical boundary so that when you get this thought, I really want to go do this, you're prevented by it. Now, there's obviously different levels, right? If you just uninstall something and it takes 2 seconds to install again, that's not super helpful. But you guys get what I'm trying to say. Now, one more thing that I just want to talk about when it comes to boundaries is this idea of accountability. Accountability is getting others involved in the boundaries in your life, okay? This could maybe be asking a friend or a family member or someone that you trust to put a password on your phone. Maybe that limits the amount of time you spend on a screen. When you're in a relationship, it's making sure that the person you're dating is on the same page as you. So both of you guys are holding each other accountable to these standards, okay? So accountability is also super important when it comes to boundaries. Now, I just gave a couple of examples. This is not a comprehensive list of all the boundaries you should have in your life. If there's any sin that you realize you have in your life, put boundaries in place so you stop doing it. Now, I also just want to draw an analogy, okay? Boundaries, you might have heard this analogy already. It's like a barrier on the edge of a cliff, okay? When you're driving and you're on the road, you're sticking on the road, you're in the middle of this turn, and suddenly you get this thought, wait, there's so much freedom on the other side of the cliff. What if I, just drive off? Well, if you're in the middle of the turn and you stop turning, you're going to go into the barrier and the barrier is going to stop you. right? That's what the barrier is there for. The barrier is there to stop when you have this thought and you want to do something and suddenly you can't do what you wanted to do. Hopefully that gets you to think like, wait, I'm not supposed to be doing this. There'll maybe be a little bit of damage on the car, right, if you drive into the barrier. But if you're 1 mile back and you're like, when I get to that barrier, I'm gonna drive through it and I'm gonna go off the cliff, you're gonna be able to smash through that barrier, right? It's not going to prevent all the sin in your life, but it's there to help you prevent most of it. Now, what I also want to encourage you that putting boundaries in your life is not a replacement for spending time in God's Word. The best boundary that you can have in your life, the thing that will help you prevent sin in your life more than anything else, is making sure you're spending time in God's Word, making sure that you're praying, making sure that you're asking for God's help in these areas where you're struggling with. So I just want to leave you guys with one last verse. It's in Psalm 119, and I think this is a beautiful verse that all of you guys should strive to be able to say to God. And it says, let me just get the verse. And it says, how can a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed according to your word. With my whole heart I have sought you. Let me not wander from your commandments. Your word I have hidden in my heart, that I might not sin against you. So I want to encourage you guys to hide His word in your heart, to spend time with God, to ask Him to help you overcome these sins in your life, and to put boundaries in place that will help you honor God even more. So I'm going to pray, then we're going to head into the rest of the fun for today. But I really want to encourage you, when you go home today, don't just think of the boundaries that you're going to put in place, and when you get home, you're not going to do any of it. I want to encourage you guys, when you get home, take that practical step. Talk to the person that you need to talk to hold you accountable. And I really want to encourage you guys to take this seriously. All right.